So I know myself, normally I have a loud voice, so I will not use the mic because otherwise you will be deaf. If you don't hear me, just say, and I will use it. So my presentation will be quite visual and practical, but that's also because I'm working somewhere in between. I'm part academic and part also working in the hospital. So I teach pharmacoepidemiology, health and pharmacology at the UZ. And I also work in the hospital in Brussels. And there I am the clinical decision support coordinator at Brussels at the ICT department. So, and at the ICT department, I will show you examples of clinical decision support and what we developed. But I'm also responsible for data in the hospital, and providing that data to different parties like BI, business intelligence, but also for clinical research. So from training and education, I'm actually a pharmacist from research. I did my PhD more in medical informatics. And I also have the Master of Epidemiology. I graduated in 2017. And my research topics are clinical decision support, medical informatics, pharmacology, and also clinical pharmacy. So, first of all, give you a small introduction, clinical decision support. So, there's a lot to do about AI and artificial intelligence last months, and also concerns about using artificial intelligence. So, what I do with clinical decision support is use computer systems which assist humans. And I stress word assist. To make optimal clinical decisions. And in the hospital, for example, we know that computerized physician order entry, so electronic prescribing, is a key element for safe decision making and improving patient safety. And we want to help healthcare providers, like, for example, physicians, to take into account existing knowledge and clinical patient data when making decisions. Because probably, as we know, the amount of information and data of patients that we have available in the hospital, it's a lot. And for a physician to take all that information into account for every patient contact, and every time he or she prescribes something, it's becoming quite difficult. And we have different types of decision support based on the moment at which they deliver support, type of decisions. Is it for diagnosis, for prescribing, for administration preparation? Is it very active support with alerts, pop-ups, and or is it passive that the physician has to activate the system? And then, of course, we have the knowledge-based systems, expert-based, but also the non-knowledge-based. We consider the computer learning, the machine learning, the AI approaches, which are coming more and more also in practice in the hospital. And then, of course, whether it's a standalone system or whether it's integrated in a clinical information system. But I would like to show you some practical examples. And I made a selection of some topics and some work that we do. So I took the example of drug-drug interactions, which means classical approach. You have drug A and drug B, and there is an interaction between those two drugs. I'm mainly talking about interactions that we don't want, because there are probably side effects, consequences for the patient. And then you have drug B with drug C, another interaction, and so on and so on. So a lot of interactions, theoretical interactions that can occur. And the challenge is there are a lot of interactions. And imagine that you are a physician and you are prescribing, and you want to prescribe a few drugs for a patient, and 10, 15 pop-ups come up that say, no, this is contraindicated, this is a problem, this is a problem. We have a lot of knowledge, but the problem that is becoming more difficult now is what we call alert fatigue. There are too many alerts, and it's difficult to know what's actually relevant and what requires action or not. And that's something that I'm working on already for a couple of years, also during my PhD. And one of and that's a simple thing, what we did is to develop a context-aware clinical decision support system. But it's not fancy AI context-aware. It's just take this simple interaction. So to give some explanation, the first drug is a potassium sparing diuretic. The second one is a potassium supplement. What you can get is hyperkalemia. And this type of interaction in the old systems, it always gives a complete contraindication, alert, your patient will die, exaggerating a little bit. But the problem is it gives a lot of alerts. Now what we did, so that's our hospital information system. In our hospital, we have our own homegrown developed hospital information system, so we can develop decision support modules for in that hospital information system. So that's the prescribing screen. We have the list of active drug orders. We have a description of the effect. There is potential for hyperkalemia, watch out. The measure to be taken, and then context factors. And that's what I mean with context. Actually, what we did is we take into account the information that we have in the hospital. So you have this interaction, but is this relevant for this patient? Yes, because the last available potassium value of 3 times, maximum 3 times back in time, is higher than the threshold that we defined. And so for this patient, it's a very serious interaction, and you have to be very careful. Physicians in Belgium also, they always have freedom of prescribing. So we say, yeah, if you want to prescribe this combination, you can still do it. But you require a motivation reason, and you have to confirm that with password. So that you know, okay, I want to really prescribe this combination, but it's on the responsibility of the physician. Now, so what does the system look like? Actually, we use a commercial database with drug-drug interaction rules, which includes all the information about interactions, but we pimp that database. That's what we do with shadow tables. We create if-then rules. We add specific time intervals, for example, because for some interactions, it's enough when you leave 2 hours between taking those 2 drugs. While for others, you have to wait weeks after stopping a drug before you can start the other one, because there's still a fading effect of the first one. So that's what we do. We add extra layers, we create expert rules, and then our system gives alerts. It gives alerts to the physician at the moment of prescribing, but also to pharmacists. Clinical pharmacists get notifications in real time when drug interactions are triggered, and then we see what the action of the physician is, and if necessary, we conduct interventions. But the good thing is, first we started with making some interactions context-specific, potassium increasing drug interactions. Our result was that we were able to decrease the alert burden with almost 93%, which is a lot. Also, because a lot of those alerts in the past were just overridden, and they were triggered, but the physician just ignored them. And also, we were able to do it in a safe manner. The risk of hyperkalemia was not high. Now, that problem was solved, but of course, then the second in line pops up. The second in line, the group of interactions that triggers a lot of alerts, but where a lot is overridden. And that's the case with QT prolongation. I will not give a course in cardiology, but it's an interaction that can lead to types of arrhythmia that can be life-threatening. The problem is a lot of drugs have the potential to cause QT prolongation. So it's a group of interactions where a lot of alerts are triggered, a lot of alerts are overridden. And there we are trying, because there are a lot of context factors there, to create also more specific rules with risk prediction models to predict the risk of QT prolongation for an individual patient. And because that's what we want to do on T0, when a physician makes a prescription of a drug with a QT interaction, take into account all the risk factors, and predict what the risk will be for QTc prolongation in the future. And that risk will determine whether the alert is red, a real contraindication, or otherwise. I simplify the system also because our system is also a big brother system. For example, at this moment, the potassium value can be okay, but half an hour afterwards, a new value pops in, and the physician is not prescribing, but our system monitors continuously. So and it gives alerts to the clinical pharmacist when the context changes. But we also compare the conventional statistical prediction model with, for example, machine learning techniques to see which one performs better. But of course, here we also have the context that we have data sets, but some of these data sets have data that we acquired via chart review. Because it's not in the perfect coded manner in our electronic patient records. But if we want to use it in practice with a model for prediction, then we should have that data in real time in the right format. For example, if there is a certain pathology, if it's in free text somewhere, then we are not able to extract it. And that's why we need coding in real time. And then just to give you an idea of the challenges. It's not so loud. So to give you an idea of the challenges that we have now, maybe some of you heard about a new regulation that went into force for medical devices in the EU, the medical device regulation, and it went into law in May 2007, effective May 2021, and it replaces the old medical device directive. Don't need the numbers and everything. Now, why? Because the old legislation was from 1993, outdated since then. If you look at the technological evolution, a lot has happened, and the impact on medical software is significant. You should know that under the Medical Device Directive, most medical software was classified as Class 1, which meant you could do self-certification, but now not anymore. Which means that it's almost always Class 2A or higher, which means that you need certification, CE marking, going through notified body, etc. And you need that CE marking before you can use the software in clinical practice. Something that we already know from medicines, from pharmaceutical products. But for medical software, it's quite unique. And just to give you an idea, you quickly end up with being a medical device. For example, if you build an algorithm that will be used in clinical practice for prognosis, for diagnosis, then the intended determines whether or not it's a medical device. The intended use, if it falls under the intended use that is described in the law, then it's a medical device. And again, before you can use it in clinical practice, then you have to go through all of the certification process. Yeah, it's important to clarify that not all software used within healthcare is qualified as a medical device. For example, just a simple medical record that's for information retrieval, storage, etc., is not a medical device. But those interaction alerts that you saw, that's a medical device. Yeah, we also did some investigation comparing the FDA regulation with the MDR. And conclusion is also that the goal is noble. We want safe devices. We don't consider software per definition as safe. That's very important. But the thing is that it quickly translates into money. To get your certification, you really need budgets to go through the notified body for regulatory. You need all kinds of expertise to build your file, your record, and you need to do clinical studies to apply for your CE marking. So that's a little bit of the consequence, in fact. And it's a little bit of simplification, but it's something that you can use quickly in clinical practice, because if you go through the complete legislation, it will take you some time. But in essence, if your medical device software is used to take decisions with diagnostic or therapeutic purpose, if it's yes, then the impact and the possible risks of your software for patient harm will determine whether it's a lower class or a higher class. And with these different classes, additional steps of safety and additional steps that you have to perform are required. So in that timetable now, what has happened now is that there is a delay. They have delayed this end date because this is the legacy period, which means that devices with an old device, an old certification, and MDD can still function. But from this date, if they are not certified under the MDR, they have to be removed from the market. You cannot use them anymore. But they delayed this date to 2027 for class 3 and to 2028 for class 2A and 2B, because they know that it's a big problem, that they will not, it's not possible anymore to get all devices that are on the market certified before that date. So, but why am I telling this also? Because there is a lot of potential for epidemiologists, because a lot of studies have to be done. There's a lot of work that requires people with good methodological backgrounds, because you have to do clinical investigations, clinical performance studies, you have to do usability studies, also some qualitative research. You think that your software works like that and that the end user perceives it like that, but maybe that's not the case. And that's why I'm telling this, because there's also a lot of room for job opportunity. So conclusion there's an analogy with drug design, development and market approval. And the MDR certification is not a one-time effort. It's during the complete life cycle. If you start being a software manufacturer tomorrow of medical devices, you are responsible for the complete life cycle and until the date that you remove the device from the market. So it's a recurrent audit by a notified body every 2-3 years. You need resources, budget, and personnel, like €500,000 to start with in the first year. And multidisciplinary expertise is required. And the time between initial concept and market authorization is substantive. We think today about a medical device, take 2 years to go through your certification process. And that's when you have complete records available. And software claims have to be supported by evidence. So if you claim something about your software, you have other projects that I'm working on and my team. So my UZ Brussel team is also responsible for providing data to that. So, and this means actually a lot of work in making the data available for other purposes, because it's often in different silos in the hospital, and you need to get get the data in the right format for the specific purpose. That can be business intelligence, research, but also, for example, reporting to the government. We have the SARI register, which was created during COVID. And a lot of hospitals still have a person that is responsible for delivering the COVID numbers to Cienzano, and they do it manually. We created an automatic process, pipelining also with RedCap integration, so that it goes automatically. And that's a lot of work that is saved by that automatization. So, and then also, we're doing also some research on providing more evidence for drug interactions, observational studies also, and that's an example. I'm working in a group where we write guidelines about using this type of drug as the DOACs in patients with atrial fibrillation. And there, for example, I look at the evidence for drug-drug interactions with different kinds of drugs. And another project, it's just to show you some things, is dementia. That's a project, data governance in the development of machine learning algorithms to predict neurodegenerative disease evolution. It's a cooperation between different partners. Actually, I'm working under two heads here, and we also have a competition involved. It's a large multidisciplinary project where we want to develop machine learning algorithms to predict, for example, MS progression. And it's actually all about getting the data in an integrated research environment, cloud-based, to have it available for different researchers. And which means that's what I was talking about when I was talking about silos. For example, imaging data, radiology, it's in a separate silo, genetics data, and then we have, of course, data from our PIMS, which is our hospital information system. EEG data, it's getting all those data in an integrated research environment, secure processing environment for doing research, which is quite booming last years. Another project, the last one that I'm talking about, is Tumor Scope. It's also the first one, dementia, was about multiple sclerosis, for example, but here it's about cancer. But also the purpose of combining the data from different silos. And this is really under my UZ Brussel hat that I'm working here. And there are different research parties at PUB. And to analyze the raw medical data, but both image, genetics data, and but also the data governance part. Because don't forget, you need a lot of data governance and also the security of who can access which data, for how long, what can they do, and you need the data catalog. You'll map with all the meaningful metadata of your data that is in the database. So, voilà, it's quick selection. I know it's a bit chaotic, but if I go too much into that, it becomes even more difficult. Thank you.